In 1988, the citizens of Hillsborough County took a bold stand for children when they voted to create the Children's Board. Child advocates, business leaders, and policymakers all worked together to ensure there would be more services, better service coordination, and a board that had a countywide perspective on the needs of children. The Children's Board is led by a 10-member board made up of the superintendent of schools, a school board member, county commissioner, the district administrator for the Department of Children and Families, and a juvenile court judge. The remaining 5 members are citizens appointed by the governor who serve 4-year terms.
In 1988, there were several women who were outstanding community leaders. Colleen Beavis, Marion Rogers, and Ann Murphy all had been devoted for quite a long time to the welfare of children.
People always ask me when I got interested in community-wide work. And I became interested in schools the minute my first child went to school. I remember thinking, I want to know what she's learning and what's going on at the school. People tease me about that. I went over there the first day she enrolled, and I hardly left.
It seems to me I've wanted to help children all my life.
What they did was they really shepherded a whole army of people behind them. They provided guidance, advice, mentorship.
There were at that time a number of organizations that were devoted to one interest or another of children, but there was no central organization with the financial wherewithal to keep the effort moving and improving.
Pinellas was the one that really got us ignited over wanting to have what they had and be able to do it our way.
In the 1980s, Bob Graham, the governor of Florida, had formed a constituency at the state level to identify needs of children. He drew us together and he said, there really needs to be a constituency in every county talking about their needs at the local level. That constituency that really was representative of our community worked for over a year and identified, really the foremost fact was there needs to be some authority that the groups can actually relate to and communicate the needs of children that span the community. There had been a law passed at the state level that said any county could form a board, but we hadn't taken advantage of that yet in our county. So we made that recommendation, and it meant that we had to draw up a resolution, take it before the Board of County Commissioners, ask them to put this on the ballot, and to take it to a public election.
At a special public hearing of the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners on July 28, 1988, child advocates, business leaders, citizens, and service providers voiced their views.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a public hearing to decide the question whether or not to authorize a referendum on the creation of a special district with ad valorem taxing authority for children's services in Hillsborough County.
We all realize that it's high time that we begin to give the children in Hillsborough County their due priority.
This county commission authorized a Hillsborough Study Commission in the early 80s to bring a report involving over 300 citizens, community-wide report on the status of children's services. Very few counties in the United States have been able to accomplish that.
638 moms and kids who needed to be at the spring last year were turned away because there was no space for them. 60% of the 625 children last year had been sexually or physically abused prior to admission.
When you grow up in an abusive home, then you get married and get in another abusive without really knowing it's going to be abusive. This is what I've gone through, and it's been very devastating for us. Now I'm 19. That's all I have to say.
The Pediatric Society unanimously endorses the formation of this Children's Services Board.
Although I support the referendum, I'm here today to voice some concerns regarding possible exclusion rather than inclusion of the minority community.
My name is Jackie Reynolds, and I'm the Project Director of the Youth Development and Prevention Program sponsored by the Greater Tampa Urban League. I'm also a member of the Hillsborough County Constituency for Children, and I believe that if the Children's Board was funded, minorities would not be excluded, they will be included.
Mayor Friedman has asked that I present a letter of support to you from her.
I would like to repeat our objection to the voting taking place at the October primary.
Working at the back end, trying to rehabilitate at one end is probably an answer, but the big answer is getting those kids before they commit that fourth and fifth offense, before they get 15 years old.
You know, we talk in high and mighty terms about our overcrowded prisons, about drugs and crime, about teenage pregnancy and high school dropouts. Well, if we are really serious about solving these problems, then maybe it's time to talk about some preventive medicine, and that's what you're talking about.
Unlike one of the commissioners who felt that not voting for it would place her on a hot seat, I think also by not presenting it to the citizen would be a disservice to us.
We can't do any more without your help, because all of us, Crisis Center, the schools, the police, all of the agencies, I know I work with them every day, are already doing more than they can do.
Many of the people who are here today, they're here because they care. I think what we're trying to say to you is that a children's board allow us to truly put resources behind our caring.
We felt like this was a prayer meeting tonight, but I do think it is an indication, isn't it, that there are people who care very much about kids.
Would you please record your votes?
After many passionate speeches, the votes were tallied and the resolution passed 4-2, with Commissioners Selvey and Poe voting no.
What an exciting prospect it was that we might have stable funding for children's services in Hillsborough County.
Children didn't have lobbyists, and so this was a way of having money for children every year without having to lobby for it.
We had a responsibility, of course, after the County Commission had approved our ordinance, that we had to go out and convince the community that this board would do a job for children that no one else was doing.
Marcia Mann, a professor at the University of South Florida, who is quite wise in matters political, and she agreed to be an advisor to us.
And I remember our most successful item was a folder that said, "He's not running for office. Vote for Joey." There was just a delight at voting for Joey, I think, rather than some state office holder.
The Constituency for Children then took a lead role and working to really educate the public, educate the voters as to what this was all about. We knew that it was imposing an additional tax, but we also knew there was a real cause for that.
Remember distributing yard signs.
What I did was get Colleen and Marianne Rogers to go around and speak to different groups of people. We wanted to create a groundswell of people to vote and get others to vote.
We did a lot of telephoning. GTE allowed us to go in the evenings to their offices. We did divided up telephones, divided up the voter lists, and just made calls.
It was like an election. It was as if we were all running for office that would develop a children's board that was be dominant and successful for children.
Watching the television and seeing the votes roll in, and finally it looked like we were edging, getting to just over 50%.
I can remember the celebration party at Marianne Rogers' house when it looked like the referendum was going to pass. I'm not sure we knew for sure till the next morning as I think back. It was close.
At a second primary election on October the 4th, 1988, the referendum passed by 1,526 votes.
George Washington Junior High School was where we had our first office and began to to meet with some of the local leaders, both community advocates, community people, and local service providers. Hillsborough County government gave us a $50,000 loan to get the Children's Board up and running and established.
Since its founding, the Children's Board has emphasized the importance of prevention and early intervention services, as well as community-based programs.
Our tact was that we would emphasize preventive services and early intervention services early on. And, we weren't saying that we would exclude everything else completely, but that's where the emphasis would be.
Many of these programs promote healthy births, improve school readiness, and help children achieve early school success.
We know from research that early intervention makes the biggest difference. The current funding that Achieve Tampa Bay receives includes funding for a doula program. A doula is a coach, a support system for a mom who's expecting a baby. And the doula is someone who's with the mom from the time the mom is identified through the delivery of the baby.
We now have a home visitation program that is based on a Healthy Families America model that works with teenagers in the South County area that are parenting or pregnant. And we can now follow them for 5 years for the baby. Once the baby's born through 5 years of age, and they go through various steps, various levels till they graduate. And it not only works about low birth weight and healthy birth, it also, the program deals with strengthening the family so that the children develop and reach their maximum potential with child development skills, milestones, a medical home, that they get their immunizations on time. A whole host of factors that really help for the child to be ready to go to school.
The FAST teams, and FAST stands for Family and School Support Teams, at the school level is a direct involvement, direct collaboration, a partnership, if you will. The school, whether it be the school principal, the school guidance counselor, or a teacher who's concerned about a particular child in their classroom. At the family level, FAST represents an opportunity that we hadn't seen, quite frankly, before the coming of the Children's Board. And it represents an opportunity to get linked to services, to have their child evaluated, and not only that, to link up with other families who may be experiencing issues similar to theirs. Over the years, it has developed tremendously, not only in the number of schools that we serve, but in our ability to work in partnership with other agencies and, if you will, short-circuit the bureaucracy.
I think Children's Board make a very significant contribution to the school system as well, because we have children who are better prepared when they go back to school. The teachers are getting a product that have been refined.
The board also funds neighborhood-based initiatives that involve residents in making decisions regarding the kinds of services they need.
The Children's Board has invested in communities through community-led and community-driven projects in a way that I think no other agency has. The opportunities to create, the opportunities to respond to community needs, the opportunity to anticipate problems before they actually were upon us.
There were 3 core services that were initiated by the Children's Board of Hillsborough County for the Family Support Resource Centers. They were services in health and safety, self-sufficiency, and child development. So what we did is we took those core services and began to provide them within the different communities based on the need expressed in those communities. And they've been very popular. And one of the nice things that we have seen is that families have given us their feedback and let us know how we can expand on those core services.
I wish more foundations and
public agencies, such as a children's board, really considered investing in initiatives that actually engage residents in the way that the Children's Board engaged residents in this community and in others. Had it not been for that process, had it not been for that engagement, the millions of dollars that have been invested in this community would simply not have come.
I come from the community, and that everyday person's voice can be heard. And so many times the Children's Board has been there as that voice for everyday people.
In 2004, the Children's Board moved to its new location in Ybor City, where it has expanded meeting space for community groups, a library with special child-related information that is linked to the Hillsborough County Library System, and the Tico Art Gallery containing works created exclusively by children.
The Children's Board was growing in terms of its breadth of focus, and we had more people involved, and we felt like that we needed to make a move into a different type of facility. We were very fortunate to acquire this land in Ybor City. It's helped us to become more of a community asset for all of our providers. There's a lot of meetings and trainings that go on.
Most recently, I characterized the Children's Board as the investment banker for the community. The Children's Board does fund programs. We also do policy and advocacy work. We have a very strong communications arm, and the job of communications is to put the message out to the community about the needs of kids so that the community sees a return on investment.
The Children's Board engages in innovative initiatives like social enterprise activities.
We also really love the fact that we can work with providers who've never considered the fact that they have brand new ways of generating revenue that will sustain or expand their program through social enterprise.
Agencies can develop activities that help them bring in revenue that are related to, but not necessarily the same as what they do to provide services. This has become an important way for a lot of agencies to again bring in additional funds. The Children's Board has been very supportive of this and has really brought experts in this area into the community, has scholarshiped a number of the agencies in getting this type of training.
Aside from the summer programs and the grant funding that we've received from the Children's Board, there have been some additional benefits. Probably the greatest benefit has been the staff development and staff training that we have received, and we've learned through that process, through the grant writing process, the importance of collaborating. We've literally broadened our scope and our comprehension of who we are.
Prior to the Children's Board, family support, family-driven care, family-driven services, system of care, however you want to call it, it wasn't there. The Children's Board has always been the one to pick up the pieces or to pick up the parts that weren't being funded or that weren't being covered. They weren't always in line saying they had to be the payer of last resort. They were there sometimes blazing the trail.
All Florida counties have the ability to create an independent special taxing district like the Children's Board. Only 8 have taken that step.
There are other parts of the state of Florida that don't have a Children's Board, and as a result, they don't have those resources. Their services are scattered, their services are incomplete, they are not bringing in new practices, new, better ways of doing things.
Through its advocacy efforts at the federal, state, and local level, the board proactively addresses issues that can help make life better for the children of Hillsborough County.
The one thing that we cannot afford to do as a community is allow our children and our families to drop to the bottom of the list when it comes to policy issues. We have to continue to advocate and find creative ways in which to still meet the critical needs of children and families of this community in light of some of the financial constraints we are facing.
The Children's Board is really good about being true advocates for children. They've been very progressive, I feel, in the way that they've gone about that.
Our goal is to make Hillsborough County the best place to raise children in all of America.
I would advise any community that was interested in establishing a special taxing district like the Children's Board to go for it. I think it's one of the greatest assets to the Tampa Bay community that we have.
20 years later, it is remarkable to see the work that the Children's Board has performed in this community.